the Warlord Titan, the iconic backbone battle titan of the Imperium's Legio Titanica, revered as god machines, a massive, heavily armed war machine from the dark ages of technology, known for its immense firepower and thick armor, serving as a frontline destroyer capable of leveling cities and armies with its diverse and powerful weapon configurations.
Brothers and sisters,
Titan!
brothers and sisters,
Chaos Titan!
brothers and sisters of the Warhammer universe, welcome back to Tortuga's Grim Rosaline. My name is Jeff, and it's finally time. It's time for our Forge World Warlord Titan build. And in honor of our beloved Rosaline, we're going to do a custom fabricated CHAOS Warplord Titan.
No!
And like I promised all of you, this is going to be a series of videos from start to finish. Not just to show you how I build and how I paint things, but also to help anybody that's never worked with resin before or large-scale pieces that might need securing or strengthening, using pinning or even magnetizing. And anybody that's already done things like this, hopefully watching this is going to give you some sort of inspiration for future builds and fabrications of your own. And in today's video, we're going to be going over all of the important preparations that we have to do, especially for resin, in order to start our builds properly. Also, I'm going to show you a listing of all the tools and pieces I use to help doing my builds. And don't worry, I'll continue to do this in the beginning of each of my videos. Before we go any further, I need you to do all those YouTube things that you do so well. Down below, click on like, share, subscribe. And now that that's all done and out of the way, let's do this.
So here's a list of all the items that we'll be using throughout this project. And to kick off this build, let's talk about the most important thing, and that is our safety. So these are the things that we're always going to be using every single time we're working, especially with resin builds. First thing first, we always need our construction guide to know what we're doing with every step of the way. Second thing we're going to be needing is a mask and eye support to make sure that we're not breathing in anything or nothing is going into our eyes. No, not one of these, even though this is cool. We're needing an actual respirator and safety goggles. Trust me, you don't want anything hitting into your eyes from dust or particles, and you don't want to breathe in any resin or carbon fiber. Whether we're printing or we're building and fabricating, you always need these. And the final thing we always want to make sure that we have are a pair of surgical gloves, especially when we're working with wet and printing resin. So right off the bat, seeing that we're going to be building a CHAOS Warplord Titan, Forge World and Games Workshop do not make CHAOS parts for Warlord Titans. So what I wound up doing is I reached out to other people that were building their own CHAOS Titans, and I was lucky enough to get some of their STL files. Looking over those, I was able to fabricate and modify to what I wanted my Warplord Titan to look like. So for the bare bones of the Titan and the Power Claw, I tried to stay as true as I could to Forge World and Games Workshop using their pieces. However, for everything else, it was primarily STL fabrication. I did 2 CHAOS heads, all the different armor plates, some really cool shoulder missiles that I have that stand out differently, and some accessories like a thumb blade for the Power Claw, a lot of skulls, a lot of spikes, and a lot of chains. I will say this, I am a big advocate to Games Workshop and Forge World. I believe you should go out and buy the Titans from them. Now, if you want to make a CHAOS Titan like I'm doing, I can help provide you some of these STL files. Feel free to reach out to me and I will share a drive with you for the armor and the heads and things like that you can add to your Games Workshop Forge World Titan. Now that we have all of our custom fabricated pieces finished, I wanted to take a minute and just show you the immense size of a Warlord Titan build. A Titan comes to you in 2 giant boxes, probably 2 to 3 times the size of a shoebox each box, and that's just the Titan body. And then you can see here, I also got the Power Fist box. In that box, the size of it is twice the size of any normal Warhammer 10 unit box. And just because I built my first Warlord Titan the year before, I had my boxes left over, which I filled a 3rd box with just my custom fabricated pieces for this build. At over 200 pieces, this is Games Workshop's largest miniature they have available. And now it's on to probably the least exciting part we're going to be doing in this entire series. And that is to wash all of these 200 plus parts. And you might be asking yourself right about now, why the hell do I have to wash all these 200 plus parts? I've never had to wash any other part in any of my other builds before. And that, my friends, is because we are working with resin. Forge World and many other companies that make resin miniatures use an oily mold release agent during their mold making process. And even though they wash these pieces before shipping them out, that mold release agent is usually still on majority of the pieces on your miniatures. And that agent can act like a barrier against your paints, your super glues, and even your epoxies from working on these pieces. So what I do, as you can see here, is I take a 5-pound capacity bucket, I put it in my sink, I fill it 3/4 of the way up with warm water, and I add dish soap. From there, I will start adding pieces into that bucket, and I will let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. Now, the warm water will help in separating that agent. And then you take an old toothbrush, and you take piece by piece and start scrubbing thoroughly. And I keep putting the toothbrush back into the soapy water just to make sure I have more soap on there to lather while I'm brushing it off. Once I've done that enough, I feel, I will then rinse with warm water, and I will feel the miniature to make sure that I don't feel that oily residue anymore. Now, another key thing here I've said numerous times is warm water. You're not going to use cold water. You need the water to be pretty warm to help separate that agent. However, we don't want the water to be super hot because we're dealing with resin. See, when you heat resin to a certain temperature, it makes it more pliable, meaning that you can actually be able to start bending the resin pieces, or if you have to, which you'll see later on, straightening them to where they need to be. So we don't want to, when you're scrubbing with a toothbrush, have this so soft that all of a sudden you start bending the pieces and moving them out of the position that they were originally set to be. So once you've finished washing and scrubbing each of these pieces and feeling them, making sure that there is no oil residue left on them, all we're going to do is simply just lay them out and set them on towels and letting them air dry. And then after a certain amount of time, flipping them over just to help with the drying. So I usually do 1 to 2 bags of pieces at a time in it, and once I finish each of those, I will then move on to the next couple sets of bags and drop them into the bucket, let them sit for about 10 minutes, and then start the whole process over again. Trust me, there are a lot of bags. For me, it took about probably 2 days, including letting each of the pieces dry out thoroughly. So I recommend having some music, something on in the background. I was actually listening to one of my Horus Heresy books. I'm about 50 books in right now. I am definitely loving all the stories and lore. And one last thing is, after you're finished doing all of this washing and scrubbing, always clean out your sink, the bucket, or whatever container you're using to hold everything in, and even rewash your towels. You don't want any possibility of resin hanging around anywhere and possibly making you sick later. Oh yeah, and don't ever use that toothbrush again on anything else except for resin scrubbing. I hope you enjoyed this initial video, and like I always say, Grim for the Grim Rosaline.